Good morning, good morning, good morning. You're in tune to Win FM 98.9. It's on your FM radio dial. It's Friday morning again in the world over. Some people are in Friday evening, Friday afternoon. That's the world today. We are never on the same page, as it's obvious. But it's a beautiful day here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I know Nevis is good because I spoke to somebody who's in Nevis and the weather was awesome, they said. I can go based on what they would have said, but I know here in St. Kitts, it is a beautiful weather. The sun is out in all its glory, free vitamin D3, the breeze is blowing, and we are living in paradise. For those of you who are in the diaspora and citizens from St. Kitts and Nevis who are living abroad, it is a beautiful day here. You're not missing out on much, but if you're in dire straits for some vitamin D3 and you want to swim in the most, oh my word, talk about calm. It's like walking on, I could understand why Peter walked on water if the water was like this one. It's very, very calm. It is beautiful to be in. And if that is what is necessary for your good health, then you're seriously missing out. But it's like I said, it's a great day here. And it's time for Your Views. Your Views is a program that is aired on Win FM every Friday morning around this time. It's a program that I would host. My name is Sandra Quilly-Atherton. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. It's a program that you can call in. Sometimes you can call in. Other times we have discussions and we can air our views. There's so many things happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. You have CPL. Patriots are doing very well and they've lost a few of the games. I must be honest, I have not been keeping up with the CPL. Have had a lot of other things to do, and I suppose me, a ardent cricket lover, have really missed out on this year's CPL because of the things that I'm extremely busy, and so I haven't had a chance to go out there. And again, we have to be very much aware of the fact that COVID-19 is a reality. We look at the statistics every day and recognize that not just here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but in the whole world over, it is, I don't know which wave this is, if it's a tsunami, or it's just one of those hurricane waves that, that come around when doing hurricane, tropical waves. I don't know, but it's very, it's becoming a bother. We have heard the situation now in Grenada, where Grenada is deciding who should live or who should die, meaning that they're overwhelmed and they have to start making decisions of who priority is paid to. And it is frightening. But again, don't let fear be your factor. You just have to do the right things. And some of the things that you have to do is make sure that you practice the protocols that are already in place. That is, make sure that you social distance, make sure that you hand sanitize every time. And wearing a mask is important. We have done so. They did very well in the phase before vaccinations. We had our numbers kept really down to a minimal, and people, because of the fact that they're vaccinated, they think that it's time to take the mask off and just live their life. But that is not how it is, because we are very much aware that people who are vaccinated can contract the virus. The severity of the virus is minimal. So I think that is one of the things. But at least you don't want to get COVID, because now we do not understand the long-term effects of COVID. We know most viral infections, they have long-term effects. I mean, you contract the virus and it can be for a lifetime. We don't know. Sometimes it goes into dormancy, so you would not have any, but then it flares up again. So you have to be very careful and be aware of the fact that this is a virus and we have only one chance to live. After that, we would have lost that chance. There's no more chances. So enjoy life. But while doing so, you have to exercise caution. We are realizing some really high counts right now in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's fearful because there's some people who just definitely still cannot take the vaccination. And there's some children who are still waiting. I mean, those are 12 and up now can have it. But those are the children who are still under 12, and they can contract the virus. So we have to be very careful. So what I'm saying to you is there are other non-pharmaceutical approach that you can use. One, make sure you beef up on your vitamin D3. Two, make sure you have enough vitamin C in your system. Lemongrass is a very good antiviral tea, so you can beef up on that, because I don't want people to get mixed up. Yeah? A virus is not a bacteria. You cannot use antibiotics when you have a viral infection. Antibiotics has to already compromise your immune system. So therefore, do not go out there and start taking antibiotics when you have a viral infection. Coconut oil is another good antiviral, antimicrobial antibiotic. Coconut oil is quite good to use. And we have all of these things here in plenty. So if you want to make sure that there are other things that you can do, like I said, if you don't want to, if you're not ready or you're not able to take the vaccination, make sure that you practice the protocols that are in place and make sure that you keep your immune system intact and ready to fight, because that's what it is. COVID is not a joke. It is seriously not a joke. People are dying, and because of that, we know definitely COVID is not a joke. And if you don't want, the life that you would save may very well be your own or your family. So make sure you adhere to the protocols. Social distancing is a must. You cannot you cannot transmit the virus if you're not in that proximity. So therefore, 6 feet apart is what is recommended, and we should do that. Because you speak, and a lot of time we spray, and that's where the virus is in your saliva. When you breathe, again, the virus is in the mist, because people don't realize that when you breathe, water comes out too, and so the virus is in there. So you have to be very careful with social distancing and make sure that you stay where you're supposed to be. Again, unnecessary visits to town or unnecessary moving away from your homes. If it's not necessary, please don't do so. Try to avoid as much crowd as possible, because our numbers are really, really rising. Our task force is very much overwhelmed. Remember, they're human. And another thing that I find that people are doing, and you make your mistakes and you have to blame it on somebody else. The CMO, the chief of staff, he is human. Their mistakes are going to, and it's not mistakes, because they have to keep up with your nonsense that you're doing. A lot of people are breaking protocols. You're in quarantine and you're coming out having conversation. I mean, how irresponsible can you get? And then at the end of the day, people are going to blame the medical chief of staff or the CMO or the people in the OC, but they're not going to blame the people who are so irresponsible. You have the privilege of quarantining in your home. I don't believe in that, but that's what it is, because again, too many people are coming in, and we don't have the space. People want to do what they want to do still, so I suppose that is one of the things. But when you have to quarantine in your own home, what is wrong with your house? You always have to be on the outside, not realizing that you don't know whether or not you're infected, and you go around infecting other people. And that is one of the reasons why the virus is spreading that fast, because of the fact that we are becoming very, very irresponsible. So that is enough about COVID. With me, I have a guest, very intelligent young man. Before I introduce you to him, I'm going to ask my technician to give me a 2-minute break, and then I'll get back and we'll have that discussion.
Think it's people can done. Florida, Canada. Big up every kitty shot. When me fly go to England, Europe, me have fun can done. But everybody know ain't no place like home. Me no know about you, but me love think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say think it's mad. When everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love think it's bad. Me no know about you, but me love think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say think it's mad. When everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love think it's bad. Full time if you big up me own, yeah. Big up me home. Me no want hear nothing about politics. Right now I leave that alone. And now me woman me ice you know. Out you with the ital rice you know. By the time come everybody nice you know. Inna them one zone. Me no know about you, but me love think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say think it's mad. When everywhere in the world have problems.
Okay, we're back. And we're back for the next 45 minutes, I hope. And with me, I have a young, intelligent, aspiring politician, journalist, every young thing, everything that a young man can aspiring. And I'm so proud. I listen to him all the time, and I'm very much impressed in where he's going. You see, a lot of times we look at young people, and we always talk about the negative side of them. Even if most so men, the young men are always this. The young men failing to realize that we were not very good examples ourselves, and because of the fact that we would have let them down, they're becoming who they think they should be based on information that they have. And that's what we always do as adults. We always blame the young people, not recognizing that we are always too busy to spend time or to listen. And because of that, that 5 minutes that you didn't give them is when they chose the path that they want to go. And then we start blaming them. But I have a young man with me, Devonne Cornelius. It's a name that you should be, you're hearing about. Okay. He's Nivision, which I'm quite proud. I am Division myself, and we realize always that the soil is different in Nevis. I mean, we always bring very young, intelligent, aspiring people with, I'm not going to use that word because it's not just in Nevis, it's St. but you see that also in Nevis. In cricket, you see we're the only ones outside, and I'm going to boast this, outside of St. Kitts. Nevis has West Indian players and aspiring West Indian players, and we ask ourselves the question, when St. Kitts going to get one on the list? I'm living here and I have my citizenship. I can't be, nobody can send me back. That's the good thing about it. So it's free to talk. Get myself in lots of trouble sometimes, but sometimes you have to defend. Because I was bullied, and I give my swimming partners a joke every morning. I remember when I came to St. Kitts and I started school, and they ask you, where were you born? And I couldn't say I was born in Nevis. It's sad though. Oh. I had to say I was born in St. Martin. I didn't even know how to spell St. Martin. They said, where in St. Martin you from? I said, Phillipsburg. Because that's the only thing I knew, because I couldn't say, it is sad, but I couldn't say I am Division, because then I had my friend Ronald would sit there and say, Davis, people come sing, they sell lime and can't get money per boat, you have to sleep under the boat. I mean, those are the things that we had to go through as Division. So we know what it is, what it feels like when we have to rival with singing. So we can boast when we have to boast. It's a fact that we always produce intelligent, talented, young people, always in top positions. Now that I would have had my boast, let's talk about you. Who are you, Devonne? You are a young man, I know that.
Well, Sandra, firstly, thank you so much for the invitation to be on this show. I think it is my second time, a third, I think it's the second time coming here. But again, thank you so much for the invitation, and I look forward to a very good discussion. Who am I? I'm Devonne Cornelius. I consider myself to be hardworking, committed, and apart from hearing me on the radio or seeing me involved in youth parliament, I sing, and I am involved in performing arts as well.
Wow.
And so I think I've been involved in almost everything, just a little bit, here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And if you don't know me as somebody who's on the radio or in youth parliament or politics, you know me as somebody who's probably on the stage singing, holding a mic, and I used to play steel pan.
Wow. Talent galore.
Yes.
And you see, that is, and I am glad that you would have made mention, not just boast them, because we have to, as young people, you have to boast these things, because everybody look at the young men especially as, there's another menace to society. And when you can look at, see you, and your aspiration, what has inspired you to become who you are right now?
Well, as you know, I'm in radio, journalism, media. I started at Nevis Television in Nevis. It was fresh out of high school, and there was a program called Youth in the News. And I was like, I want to try this out. I want to see, what's it like to be on TV or radio or generally in the media. And I went, I did it, and that was in April of 2018. And I became a full-time employee in September of that year. I took a short break, went into the tourism and hospitality industry at the Four Seasons, and I'm now back in media. I am definitely hoping to further my studies in this field to get hopefully a bachelor's degree in mass communications. But this is something that I love genuinely, and I think it really fits who I am, because I love to talk. I love to speak with people, talk on different topics, whether it be something politics or education, or just generally about young people and young people advancing. Because as you said, Sandra, we often hear of what young people are doing bad or the negative side of young people, but looking at what contributions they've made, we hardly hear that. And so, I honestly just aspire to be different and aspire to stand out. But that's where it all started. It was at Nevis Television, and that's where I started to shine. I have had interest in politics, particularly, I started in youth parliament, Nevis Youth Parliament. I'm now part of the Sinkis National Youth Parliament Association, so I like parliamentary business, politics. That honestly, it excites me.
So you are an aspiring premier, next premier for Nevis?
Hopefully.
Possibility.
Hopefully. You wouldn't believe, but that's one of my nicknames.
Yeah.
Every morning when I go to catch the boat, somebody would say Mr. Premier or Minister of Finance. Seriously. I'm pretty sure that person is listening right now. But that is on my to-do list, not now, but, maybe 15 years from now when I'm still perhaps, just in my 30s, but
maybe before. Don't
might
put
be
time
before.
on it. Let me tell you, the universe gives you what you
Yes.
ask for, and if that is what is supposed to be for you, you're going to get it. But guess what, Devon? You have all of the characteristics. You'll meet all of the criterion of a person who would want to be in politics and aspire to be the premier. It's just an aspiration, and then you just have to work towards it,
Yes.
and it becomes a reality. It's just a dream. You start with a dream. And I've seen you, I've listened to you, and in action, and it was nice for you to start to look at the areas that you spoke earlier about education. We look at the situation we have now in Nevis and St. Kitts. The schools are teetering on the edge because in Nevis school haven't opened yet. In St. Kitts we're still looking at some of the situations there. It's like the children are going out, and hoping that as a parent myself, I just have that fear of every time you let your child out of the house, you have a fear that, that they can contract the virus. We look at Nevis' situation. How do you feel about it? Parents have to work, the children, and people don't understand the impact of school being closed. I see people, parents who during the summertime, they don't know what to do with their children, because not all of us are fortunate enough to have a grandmother there or auntie who's willing to look after. What is the situation like in Nevis where the schools are closed?
Well, with the schools being closed, I remember there was a notice that came from the Ministry of Education to say that they're going to postpone the reopening until Monday. They confirmed that schools will be reopened in Nevis, public schools, on Monday the 13th. And that was because there was a COVID-19 exposure at the Ministry of Education on Nevis. Some key education officials, tested positive, and principals and teachers were exposed to that positive case.
Wow.
And so as a precautionary measure, they decided to postpone the reopening of schools. However, last evening, the Education Minister, Troy Labbert, he came and said that they're going to reopen schools on Monday. But, with the reopening of schools, there are still concerns in the context of COVID-19, with the numbers fluctuating. But they have expressed that, they have protocols in place, and they're going to make sure, they're going to try their best to ensure that teachers and students are kept safe. Last week, I shared my thoughts on that, and I listened to some of the callers. And, looking at the situation realistically, with COVID-19 and children, we know it's going to be a difficult task. It's going to be a difficult task to, control the children with social distancing, mask wearing, and all of that, all of the COVID-19 protocols. So with schools reopening on Nevis, parents, I would say, are concerned, not just with COVID-19, but initially some parents thought that it would have been a virtual opening, and there's some parents that don't have access to devices. Some probably can't afford, some just don't want to buy devices or get devices for their children. But I think for the most part, those that have been laid off, not working, they can't afford. And so that was one of their concerns in terms of making sure that their children are able to get good education, quality education. And we're hoping that with the reopening of schools, because I have nieces and nephews, and I'm hoping that they go back to school and they're safe. But, just being realistic and looking at the situation, you can only hold your breath.
And
You can only hold your breath.
Let's look at a situation where we talk about virtual schooling because if we don't want to believe it, we have to look at the fact that that's where the world is going.
Yes.
It's not just COVID. We look at World War III, and we've been talking about World War III. We've looked at World War II and World War I, and we recognize it was guns and ammunition, and people were going to defend us
Right.
and keep us safe. And now we can say that we are basically at war with COVID because
Yes.
the whole world is affected, and a lot of us are not even aware that this can very much be the Third World War. People are not using guns and ammunition, so we don't know how much longer it's going to last. And seeing our children, and like I said, they are so vulnerable, having to wear a mask all day is posing issues for these children. They're not breathing properly. I have problems with masks because masks for me, I'm inhaling the carbon dioxide that I'm exhaling, and sometimes it makes me lightheaded. And so I could imagine how children, because I sent Rain to school, she has on her mask, she has on a visor, and she has to keep that on all day. It's just, for me, I think it's just not, it's not hygienic, it's not good for them because it's difficult. You can't run out and play. So there are areas that, as you, an aspiring politician, would have situations like this to deal with if you forever become, if you ever would become the premier of Nevis. You would have to deal with situations like this. What do you think, and what kind of suggestion you would give to the minister? For me, I think that they have to seriously start looking at virtual classes. I think government has to start to invest in teachers who are not going to be there. They can use that money that they're going to use to pay them to invest in computers and stuff for children who cannot afford, and see how you can get a good platform where you can learning platform where the children can learn virtually, because we see that happening in with the universities. People are now doing the virtual classes online, and they've been doing classes online even before COVID. So we have to now look at platforms where we can have suitable platforms where we can have classes. I saw during the lockdown in June,
Right.
we saw teachers were having the Zoom classes, and the children adapted easily. And I think that is something the government has to seriously start looking into, because that's where the world is going.
Sandra, if I may comment, with doing schools virtually, there are some students that enjoy doing that, and there are others that, to be frank, I can't keep up with this, But that does not mean it should not happen, because, as I said, this is 2021, and we can't keep going back in time. We have to keep move forward. No, face-to-face learning is good. Being in the classroom with the teacher, interacting with the other students, and getting that physical attention from your teacher is good. But I remember in the past we said, or we have been saying, we have to learn to live and adapt with COVID-19. And in a physical setting may not be the best thing. It's not impossible. Or it may not be the best thing. And so I think what the education officials or the education minister can take into consideration is making sure that there is proper and adequate training for teachers who are not that technologically advanced or, versed in technology, computers, all of that, making sure that they're exposed to training at the expense of the ministry, of course, and making sure that students are trained as well as parents. Because many times, you will see your child come home with a laptop that they probably got from school, a device, and you are not too concerned what they're doing. You should be as a parent. And so training for the parents, training for the teachers, and training, of course, for the children is definitely important. And I think that can make the virtual learning better.
But you have training devices that is specific for that. So the government can look into some cheap devices where you can just, when you turn on, you're going to school. It is a device that when you go in your room, whatever room you choose in your house, and you turn on your system, you're in the classroom.
Right.
You can't do anything else with that. It's just to get you inside of a classroom.
Right.
If children have to do research, parents have to take on the responsibility of buying their own electronic devices where they can do their own researches. But it's just like sitting in a classroom. When you sit in your room, your house, you have to be able, children have become more disciplined.
Yeah.
In the classroom, you have the distraction where children are talking and talking and talking, and sometimes you wonder if they can't pay attention. Parents now have to start paying a very, very, a bigger role in making sure that these things are happening. The onus has always been on the teachers. Now it's the parents' role is to make sure that the children are disciplined enough and are able to log on into the classroom and sit in the classroom. The only problem I have with that is that most parents have to go to work.
Yeah, that's it, right?
And
yeah.
we are faced with the problem of single parenting. And then the grandmothers are working because people are not going home. Grandmothers, people are still working at 65, 70. They're still going out to work. And but now again, you have another, the downturn because there are a lot of people who have been laid off because of the COVID-19
Yes.
situation. So they're in a better situation where some, the majority of people have children and parents at home. Or then you have the neighbors then. I mean, you still want to avoid the COVID, the close contact.
Yes.
So you still, but it's only 2 children you might have, could be sharing, and you can do that. I look at you, one is on one end and the other is on the other end. Just children who doesn't seem to have, I guess the government is going to provide, should be able to provide a device where you have, it's different to what it's accustomed to. Not a laptop, but a device that when you log in, basically when you're having virtual meetings, you just log in and you can access your classroom that way. So you have to start looking at these things down the line in the future, in the very, very near future, because if COVID is not going anywhere, you still don't want to expose people unnecessarily to the virus. So you don't want to have school opens and saying, oh, you just have to live with it, because our healthcare system is already overwhelmed. Our hospitals, we don't have the space, we don't have the manpower,
Yes.
we don't have anything that we could, to help in a situation we become overwhelmed. So we have to start making sure that we get other alternatives where we would try to avoid that congregation, because government has put some, you can't congregate, you can't have parties, but then you have classrooms who have 30-something because you can now change it because of COVID, because that is something that's been going on and on. So you're going to tell people, oh, we're only going to take 15, so the first 15, you 10 have to go home. No, it can't. So you can't change that situation. How much more extra classrooms can government put on? So you have to start looking seriously about virtual learning, where children have to be taught at home until, again, you're going to look at the fact that you have a vaccination for children 12. What happened to the preschoolers? What happened to the primary school children? How much longer you have to wait before you get that vaccination again? And it's not about just that. It's other things, because we now know that even children who are vaccinated can contract the virus.
Yes, they can.
And listening to all that, Devonne, and you're still aspiring to be a politician, you see how challenging it's going to be in the future, where people are going to have to seriously look and understand who they're voting for, because at the end of the day, that makes a big difference. You want somebody who understands, who has the know-how of how to run not just a country, because move far away from that now. It's not about dollars and cents anymore. There are other things that you have to do. You become basically like the parent in a home where everybody becomes your responsibility. And are you ready for that task at this time, Devon? And the future looks even better.
When I look at politics, even here in the Caribbean, and how people vote, if you look at the different Caribbean islands, people vote differently. For example, if you look at St. Lucia, they change government so fast.
Yeah.
And they have been doing that, changing governments constantly. I had the opportunity to monitor, I took the opportunity to monitor some of the elections. For example, Jamaica, you had the People's National Party that had quite a good number of seats, and in the 2020 elections,
You were not there.
they were there. They lost their seats and they lost like strongholds. Looking at what happened in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where there was basically a clean sweep, and in other countries. So with Caribbean politics and people voting, some see it as an opportunity to make money, speaking to the voters, or elections are coming, and so this is a chance for me to make $500. This is a chance for me to make $5,000. Some see it as an opportunity to let their voice be heard. And so you may not necessarily be a person who would come on the air, or somebody who would go on the tone and talk and make a lot of noise, but you may have an issue that is bothering you, whether it be an issue in the health sector, the education sector. You want to see a change in something. And so if the candidate is in line with the issues that you want to see corrected or fixed, and I think that is where you should put your vote. And so you're passionate about education. You want to see more funding in education. You want to see, different opportunities. And the person who is putting up their name, they have a good track record in education. They are not just somebody who, came yesterday and said, hey, I want to be involved. They've been involved in the community for many years, and they have definitely made a name for themselves. They are essentially a community activist because they've been there helping people long before they got that political title. I think that is where you should vote. Not necessarily because family members before voted for this particular movement or this particular party, but people, should be really careful of how they vote. You vote for substance. You vote for people that can deliver because they have a track record of delivering. Mm-hmm. You vote for people that based on what they've done before, they have a genuine concern and they have a genuine love and passion for people and service to people. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and that's, I hear you. I am the same person. I think the same way. Mm-hmm. People vote along party lines because of the fact that their parents voted for that particular party. And that is one of the reasons why politicians are given 5 years, and within that 5 years or 4 years or 2 terms, within those time, you have to prove yourself.
Right.
It's not that, and I notice most politicians do that, though. At the end of the 3rd term, the 3rd year of the term that they serve, it's when they start to do things. They go out and all of a sudden everybody know them and you can call them and they'll come and they would sit and have a conversation because they want to be re-elected. And a lot of times we are very gullible people and we fall, we listen to them and we do the same thing over and over again. For me, I assess the situation, I look at your performance. I'm not going to vote because I have to vote. It's my constitutional right to do so.
If you want to.
Yeah, but I have to look at performance matters. I don't, somebody's slogan is performance matters. I think that is one of the things and people have to live up to because everybody comes up with the best slogan. Yeah. But at the end of the day, performance matters, but yet you're not performing.
Right.
And these are the things that people have to start to look into. We see that in the Caribbean islands, we see people are very party affiliated. People vote along party lines. And again, government is supposed to give you an opportunity and not support you. And a lot of times you see the government, what they do is they give you little hand-me-downs. People are close to them because they can get, they can get special treatment and they can get, fringe benefits. But that's not how it's supposed to be. And that is one of the reasons why I always tell people, when I support a party that is doing well, I don't care what anybody said because you have facts to back up. But I'm not going to support a party when somebody asks me, so what have they done lately? I'm going to go back from when they were in power or their predecessors were there and they did certain things. We're not alone. We're not talking about the leader now. We're talking about the party. And so because when a certain person run the party, these things were happening, you think that the same thing, the next person who's doing that, who's now in charge, going to do the same thing. And people would vote for them again because of past performance and not a government. A government has to perform. There are lots of challenges. I don't know what to say about the Unity Party because I find they have had their hand filled with challenges. They've had COVID is just not letting up, and government has to come up with all kind of stimulus packages. People have been laid off from their work, and it's not because
Yeah, sorry, not to cut you off. As you mentioned that. Even with governments that are in right now, governments in COVID, sometimes, I'm like, wow, how you do it. Not making an excuse for them, because there are some that have made an effort and there are others that are just saying, "Oh, COVID."
Yes, it's used as an
Yeah,
excuse.
as COVID. Oh, the
Yeah.
phone drop is COVID fault.
Yeah.
Everything is COVID fault,
Yeah,
you know?
it's COVID.
And it's crazy. But I understand that, yes, it's a delicate situation. And, you know, you're dealing with a health crisis, and you still have this health crisis is creating an economic crisis, a financial crisis, because people are not working. People need money. And so, as you said, there's a need for stimulus packages. There's a need for all of these things to happen. So it's crazy all across the board.
It's really tough, and you and people have a right to complain, because when you look at things that are not happening, you the first thing you're going to do is blame the government, because the government has to create an environment that is conducive for us as entrepreneurs to survive. People who are working for government is fortunate enough to know that their salaries are safe, but people who are working for themselves, have to look for an environment that is conducive for us to produce and benefit, and that is the difficult side of it. And government has not only just to look after government workers, but they have to look after everybody. So they have to make sure that they create an environment for entrepreneurs, and you have to make sure government have enough money to pay their staff. It is a difficult situation. And so when people are voting, they have to look and find out whether or not these people are capable. How do you do that? You do that by looking at performances. And most of the time, the people who are going back, who want to be re-elected, they want to be re-elected. You have people who have been placed in the opposition because they were not performing then, and hoping that when they were put out, they would have learned their lessons and they would come back and understand how it is to perform. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have that. We have two parties. We have now, we have three parties now. We have the People Labour Party, we have PAM, and you have a Labour. In Nevis, we have CCM, and we have NRP. So basically, we have five parties, and it's been there for. People Labour Party just came in, but we've had four parties running from since I was not even heard of, even before I was conceived. I mean, this is what it has been. And so we now know that these are the four parties that, there's five now, that who vie again for re-election.
I guess this is a message to the young people listening. What I do is just like when you have an employee. What I do, I look at manifestos, and I make comparison, and I tick off accordingly. And so it's just like when you have an employee, and you perhaps at the start of the day gave them a task list. These are the things that I want you to complete, because you're paying them, you hired them, and so they're here to do what you hired them to do. And at the end of the day, you realize, well, you gave them 10 tasks to complete, and they probably did 2.5. What happens there? It's the same thing with government. It should be the same thing.
It is the same way
with governments, So we over the years we've heard of these wonderful manifestos with all what is going to happen.
And promises.
Promises.
They recycle them the next election because they didn't do anything out of it.
So when you look at when you go back now, because not many people do that. But when you go back now, when you look at did this happen?
No.
Did we get this project? Did this project continue? Doesn't happen.
You don't have to look in the old manifesto, because it comes back over in the new one.
In the new one.
It's a recycling of promises that never are fulfilled. And then people go back and vote for the same people again in office, and you wonder why. Why?
I just hope, Sandra, that even here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that people really, I can't even find the word to describe it, but I really hope that people, when voting, they know exactly
why
they're voting,
yeah,
who they're voting for,
yeah,
and make an informed decision. It's just like when you're going to take the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
At first you were like, oh my God, what is this vaccine about? Will it kill me? All of that. And after getting the information, doing your research, you realize, okay, I'm ready for this vaccine. It's just like going to perform your constitutional right. Don't just go out and vote because somebody probably forced you, or you get a little pocket change or anything like that. But make an informed decision, Make a real informed decision.
You're a division, and we recognize that NRP is a new party, basically new faces. It's under the same umbrella of the old NRP, but like I said before, I don't want anybody to come and say, oh, NRP has performed over the past 10 years. It's not the same people who are in there, and therefore you're going to have, and don't tell me that, it's our policy to do such. No, it's different ideas. You're faced with different situations are different, time is different, and so you don't expect you're going to apply the same method that was applied then by your predecessors. Yeah. So you have NRP vying up for the next Nevis elections just around the corner. It's constitutionally due in 2022.
2022, yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's just around the corner. You have CCM who's there, and you have NRP. What do people feel like? You're there, so you understand. People really want to change, or people are quite satisfied with what's happening in Nevis right now.
When you look at, for example, social media is where you find a lot of things to talk about. Sometimes you get radio programs that they're doing now, and you look at how people are responding to different issues affecting them, particularly on the island of Nevis, and it's such a tricky question, Sandra, because at one moment you would say yes, people are ready for something new, and then at the other moment people would be like, I'm not ready as yet. I wanna wait a while. I wanna test the waters a little bit. And so at times it is clear that they want to try something new, and at a different time they're like, I'm gonna wait a while. I'm gonna see. We also have a problem, or I've also seen a problem in Nevis, and the numbers are there, where people, especially locals, are not really much interested in the voting process anymore.
You've seen that, yeah.
I'm not sure if it is because they're saying, oh, it's the same old people, But if you look at the situation now, even with the NRP, I wouldn't say it's the same old people, because you're seeing new faces, younger faces, and
women,
I like to see I like to see young faces and women.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is that generally across the board, people they don't want to vote anymore. They're probably not interested, or they just perhaps voted before and they were not
neglected
pleased. They were not satisfied with what happened, and so they're like, you know what?
You know what, the Devon is what the politicians offer, and I can see why young people, especially, they're fed up. Houses we're going to give you, and people have to realize that government do not give houses. They make provisions for it, and they help you to get one, but they don't pay for it. You have to pay for it. At the end of the day, it's an opportunity the government would have given you to get your own home, but they would have provided that opportunity, but you have to pay for it. So if you can't afford it, you still can't get it.
Right.
And so a lot of young people were under the impression when the government said they're going to give you a home, not realizing that sometimes you have to come up with $10,000 as a down payment. You don't have that.
Right.
And then they're not making provisions for you to get that. And so it's going to be difficult. And I have heard a lot of young people who made promises too, and up to now they haven't gotten their house. But government is not building houses at this time. I mean, kudos to St. government. I find they're doing a lot of infrastructure development still in this COVID environment. Still things are going on, business as usual. I want to know, this is really a person who understands how to manage money then. I have to go and have some classes, because I can't understand it. But people are looking for that. Young people are looking for the fact that they were offered houses. They were offered jobs. In a situation like now, a lot of young people are home. And I think that is one of the disadvantages of people who if you go to the polls now in Nevis, you're going to have that problem, because you're looking at people who they're not going to come out to vote. Because what am I voting for when I'm home sitting down? I don't have jobs. The foreigners have an agenda, or not an agenda, but they have their reasons why they want to do it. Because at the end of the day, they can get chances of getting citizenship. It's easier. When you go around and tell them that I'm going to support you, then of course people, because the locals are not going to do it, you're the ones that we're going to come to. So therefore you think that you're going to be given preferential treatment, and so you get close. And this is what politics has become in St. Kitts and Nevis. In the world over, you have people who are doing that, where everybody are benefiting as an individual. People are not interested that you put in somebody who's in power, where the whole country can benefit, but people want to benefit as individuals. You see that after government would have left office, you find people at the sour grapes are going out and they're saying, and they have the loudest voice because they were the ones who were benefiting. And people like us who just ordinary citizens who don't benefit, we don't know who's in there. We would go out because it's our constitutional right to vote and hope every time I cast my X that you are going to be different. and that's what it is. You just hope that you're going to do something different, because they make their promises. Manifestos are things that I don't read, because for me they're just promises that have been made. And like I said, every year they recycle. Every 5 years it's recycled because nothing was done. And so I don't read. I look at performance. I look at the situation and I make comparisons myself. I analyze. Well, I'm an analyst by profession, and so I like to sit down and analyze and make sure that when you exercise that right, your constitutional right, it is not just your rights, but it is you're creating an environment where everybody can benefit by the choices that you make. And those are the things that you look at. In NIFES, like I said, it's a lot of women, and I'm not saying this in any biased way, but because of the woman in me, I'm a sexist, and I want to, I'm not going to hide that. I always want to see women given a chance. So if I was in NIFES, I would have given NRP a chance. Why? And let me make that statement, because I'm a woman. And I want to give women a chance to prove themselves, because men always think that politics is a man's world. They've made a mess of the situation. Men. They behave like women when they get in there. They abuse one another. They mind everybody, little petty business. The greed is even greedier. But they even become greedier. So I would look at the situation because it's women. If all women were running for CCM, I would have voted for CCM too, because I'm following the women.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So it's not just a party that I'm voting for. I just want to see some women given a chance. But again, I wouldn't just give any woman a chance because she's a woman. You have to be a capable woman.
Yes.
So it's not that I'm just going to vote because you're a
yes,
woman,
yes.
but you have to be capable. And how do I know that? Because you have never had the experience. By the things that you say, your approach, the things that you recognize now, the fact that you have a solution to the problem, because everybody can identify a problem, but nobody seems to know what the solution is. So, and that is one of the areas, these are the areas that we have to look to as electorates, understanding that there are problems, and there are always going to be problems. But don't listen to the man who can identify the problem. Listen to the man who has a workable solution. And that is one of the reasons why I want to look at. And Devon, what are you looking for in NIFES, though, as a youngster?
Sandra, this might sound vague, but I'm looking for something fresh, something new. I want to see young people. I want to see young people. I want to see young people like me prosper.
Yeah.
And prosper doesn't mean handouts. Prosper doesn't mean
thank you.
Little $5.
Yeah. Thank you.
Prosper means creating an enabling environment for people, young people in particular, who are interested in entrepreneurship, young people who are interested in whatever field that they want to be in, whether it be performing arts, whether it be criminal justice, whether it be law, medicine.
No, please don't call those two words anymore. We are two favorite lawyers and doctors.
Just creating an environment for them to grow without there being any backlash and victimization because of how they express themselves politically. I was listening to a panel discussion by Sniper, and those were some of the sentiments that were echoed by one of the panelists. Young people should be allowed to engage themselves in decision making in politics without being denied a scholarship, without being denied an opportunity to have their voice heard, without getting backlash from any of the political parties, without being, pushed aside because perhaps they're a bit too vocal on an issue, whether it is for or against. So I'm looking for something new, and I'm hoping that the people that are putting up themselves can bring that.
Yeah, and it's the same thing I said. Although I like the khaki skirts and the different thing. It's just.
You just want to see women.
I want to see a woman in that position, leadership role. I want it. So if CCM has won, but I don't think Mr. Brantley is ready to give as a premier. So that one would hold on to a seat. But when you have the majority in a party, chances are you have one in how many? the ratio is better. Woman who's going to take on leadership role in Nevis. And like I said, I don't know what the leader. I don't just want anybody. I don't just want any woman to go. But I've had the chance to interview her, and I like what she says. She creates, and that's one of the things about women. Although we are not mothers, we were born, we were created that way, with that desire to help. It's a maternal instinct where we always want to fix things the right way. We always create fair share. Men don't have that. We all are naturally selfish beings. It's all about you as a man, and I mean, I know what people are going to tell me, but it's just who I am. So sorry. I apologize for those of you who are not. But I am not putting everybody in the same basket, though. But it's normally it's a tendency. Let's use the word tendency.
People are
it's
different.
a tendency. Yeah, people are different. But it's men. It's always a tendency for men because just don't blame yourself. You were not created that way. You were created in the way you're supposed to be hard and harsh. You're supposed to be out there as a fighter and a provider. And I suppose that's where you get that tendency of being greedy because you want to make sure your family has the best. And so that's the kind of thing that's the mentality that you have. So I can't blame them. But we want to see, and I want not just in Nevis though, I want to see the political parties in St. Kitts give women a better chance where they can be in that kind of position. I listened to Akila, and the way she articulates it's different. It's a different type of politics. The things that she says is different. It's not about politics now. It's about caring. When I listen to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, finally somebody cares. I listened to the senator what's the name? Wendy Phipps. Wendy Phipps, yeah. Nisbet
Wendy
too.
Phipps,
I mean,
yeah.
Nisbet is, but they are very, for me, Nisbet is strong man kind of thing. I want that softer side of the politician. She's quite eloquent. She's very, very articulate. But it's that man kind of, we want the softer side, somebody you can approach and somebody that you can talk to. And that's what you're looking for in politicians. Wendy, for me, is very articulate too, but I find she's very firm and that kind of unapproachable kind of way. But I like Akila's approach. She's soft.
Yes.
I mean, she's a minister with responsibilities. She's a person that you think you can approach even though, because that's the kind of person. And I want to see more of that inside of politics here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I wish men would start to not relinquish their position, but start to look at the fact that women can do the jobs because we were the one who raised you. We nurtured, we brought you into being. We taught you what you know. So if we can teach you and make you become who you are, why can't we do the same thing for the country? And these are the things that we have to start looking at now, getting women more involved in politics. We couldn't before because of the mudslinging, the kind of conversations that you would have had. For me, it was the meaning when you listen to the men in parliament talk is very, very demeaning. As a woman, you don't want to be caught up in part of that crossfire. And so we are now changing. If we're going to change what it looks like or politics should be like, then we have to definitely start looking at women. So you, in Nevis, what do you think is going to happen in Nevis?
Sandra, is going to be, many people have said it's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be one for the history books. Honestly, I can't say definitively what the outcome will be, but I think people are going to be shocked. I think people are going to be surprised.
Wow.
But the outcome of these elections, I believe, just monitoring the situation, looking at both sides, listening to both sides, seeing what is being done, I think is going to be one where you're going to have to follow it right to the last end, right to the end.
I just hope it's not just an anticlimax. I hope it just doesn't come down to everybody just going and do what they want to do. Because people are tired of it. You just go in and cast your vote because people feel like if you don't do it, people would know that you didn't vote and you would not be given an opportunity. That's not right, though. That mentality has to change. And Devon, I really would like to sit down and have a political talk. We talk politics because I like you. I like the way you rationalize. I like the fact that you're a good analyst too, and you look at situation in the realistic side of it, and we can definitely talk about what we want to see here in St. Kitts and Nevis, because politics in St. Kitts and Nevis is not politics. It's two-party affiliated in the first place. Everybody wants not an opportunity. Everybody wants a hand-me-down, and we're kept in that position, huh? And I'm seeing that we're kept in that position so that people can do what they have to do. But I want the electorates to know the little bit that they get cannot be compared to the many that you put them in there and they do get. And people flaunt it in your face a lot of the time, what they have, and politicians fail to realize that they are servants of the people.
Yes.
And not just the big leaders that they think that they are and the kings that they think they are, but that the fact that they are servants. They are at the lowest scale because we are the ones who employ them. We're the ones who put them there. And sometimes they fail to forget that. But it was, and the good thing about it, I'm infringing on your time.
We're out of time.
We're really out of time, and I'm infringing on your time, and you have contributed to that. It feels good to do that because I sometimes feel so guilty. When we're doing this. But it was a pleasure, though. It was comfortable sitting talking to you. I like talking to people who like you, who's so easy to talk to, so intelligent as a young person. When I said I was going to have the conversation, you see, we don't have paper, we don't have pen, we don't have books, we don't have anything. It's just that conversation we just had, and the fact that you're just there, it gives me hope because you're a young man, and my future look bright through you because if definitely I would know that when they're getting ready to relinquish the roles as leaders, it's going to come down capable hands like you. So it's the future look promising. It does. And I do like having young people and having to be able to interview young people. And we can talk, not interview, I hate to hear that word, but we can have discussions about what the future look like because you're the future.
Yes. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for the invitation. It was a very good conversation, went very smooth. And again, I'm looking forward to coming back.
You would be.
For us to have further conversations like these. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm getting ready for voices now.
Thank you for accepting. I know that you all talk out. And for me, if I were you, my program would be a real calling program. And that's the problem with your views. Your views is normally a program where I have to talk too much. It's one of the talents that I have, though. I do like to talk. It gives me pleasure to talk. Everybody knows me, know that I'm a talker, but again, people don't know that sometimes I don't like to talk. So, but it was a pleasure, and thank you for accepting my invitation. And I look forward to having more of these kind of discussions with you. It was easy, non-biased, and that's what I want. I don't like people who not that I don't like to have conversations with people who are going to look at things from a very biased standpoint. Yeah. Politicians are politicians. Politics is a game. You always change your players, but you never change the game. People are not interested in changing systems. People are just interested in changing people, because at the end of the day, the systems work out for the people who are going. My name is Sandra Quilliatet, and it was a pleasure to be here. Today is Friday. It's a day when you go out and you do things differently. But remember, COVID is a reality, and people are becoming sick. And I ask you, please, make sure that you practice and you do the protocols that have been given to you. That is the washing of your hands, the social distancing, and wearing your mask. It has saved lives. It had curtailed the spread of the virus before we have vaccination. Please continue to do so. And those of you who are in quarantine, remember, we don't know whether or not you're sick, and that is one of the reasons why you're placed in quarantine. It's only for a short time. Can you please stay there? Please? Because we are making people sick, and it's not right. So I would have made my appeal, and I do hope that people have listened and will continue to listen. It's the reality. It's just not a St. Kitts problem. The whole world is facing a crisis. And I listen to the Premier and I listen to the Prime Minister, and they always like to say that we are at war. And we are part of it. And during wartime, who most of the time, it's us, the civilians, are the ones who are killed. So make sure you exercise the precautions, wear your mask, social distance, and hand sanitize. Stay tuned to Win FM 98.9. Voices is up next.